Hey guys, the Airsoft Tech here, and welcome back. Today we're going to be going over some internal upgrade parts by Mastermods. Now, while these parts were provided to me by ICS, Mastermods and ICS are two separate companies. They do, however, work closely together on ICS's newer and nicer lineup of AEGs, where Mastermods supplies some of the internal parts that they use in those newer AEGs. Now, these parts by Mastermods are supposed to be direct upgrade parts. They're supposed to compete with SHS, Lonex, ZCI, PDI, Prometheus, and other upgrade brands in their same class. So, that being said, these are supposed to be very high quality upgrade parts that are very durable and fit very well in your AEG. And today we're going to be testing that. We're going to be comparing them directly with other upgrade parts and getting them installed into my airsoft guns. Now, let's actually go to the workbench and look at these parts more closely and actually install them in some of my AEGs. So before we get started on the actual review, I'd just like to thank ICS for sending me all this stuff here. They sent me the parts, the work mat, and this really cool screwdriver set as well. So again, big thanks to them. I greatly appreciate having another work mat on my other workbench. So first, let's talk about what all ICS sent me here. They sent me the Mastermods cylinder head here made out of 6061 aluminum. They sent me a piston and piston head assembly here. They sent me an air seal nozzle, aluminum air seal nozzle. I guess it would probably be the same type of aluminum as the cylinder head, but it does not say. And then they sent me two barrels. They sent me a short barrel, 97 millimeters in length, and then they sent me a longer barrel, 229 millimeters in length. Alright, so the very first thing I noticed when I got these parts in is just how well packaged they are. You know, it might be a small part like a cylinder head that comes in a really nice, sleek black box with this gold writing on it, the Mastermods company name with perfecting the perfected saying right on the box there. So the packaging is nice, and you know, us techs, we don't particularly care much about packaging. You know, when we order parts and we get something like this, we think nothing of the packaging, which is, you know, fine because the performance is there. With these, you get some really nice packaging, and it just kind of goes to show how much they care about presenting you, the customer, their product. So, but obviously, if the performance doesn't match, then the nice presentation doesn't really matter. So we'll talk about the performance later once we install these parts, but all the Mastermods parts come nicely packaged in this black, sleek, and gold lettering. So that's just something kind of neat to notice. It just goes to show that they care about how they present you the product. Alright, so now let's just go part by part and you know, do a kind of first impression of each part. So this is their piston and piston head that they sent me. So, you know, right off the bat, the plastic feels good and sturdy. Doesn't feel like it's that too kind of glassy, hard piston body that tends to shatter like the VFCs do. So that's good that this does not have that kind of plastic. Steel rack looks good. They have, you know, through the factory have included that tooth removed so that it's easier to correct angle of engagement on your gun. Piston head feels, you know, fine for how I can feel it. It looks like it's probably made out of the same aluminum as their cylinder head and air nozzle. It does feel like a pretty heavy piston assembly, which I'd prefer to have a heavier piston assembly than a lighter weight one because I can always take away weight. It tends to be a little bit harder to add weight. But yeah, that pickup tooth reinforcement looks to be a little bit more than even SHS includes. So let's see here. Here's an SHS 15 tooth piston, pretty much the gold standard piston nowadays. And the pickup tooth reinforcement is more on this than on this one, which is good. More pickup tooth reinforcement is better. Even in the rear, it's got a little more pickup tooth reinforcement. Which, if you know anything about pistons and high-speed or DMR builds, is that your pickup tooth reinforcement really, really matters. If you don't have a lot of reinforcement there, it tends to be that your piston rack, this tooth rack here, gets shot through the back because the reinforcement just isn't there to hold this in place. That's why we epoxy or glue the racks in place. So seeing that reinforcement from the factory is really nice. So yeah, so far this piston looks good. Piston head looks good. Looks like it comes with some bearings in there, so that's always awesome. So yeah, let's move on to the next part. Alright, so the next part we're looking at is their cylinder head made out of 6061 aluminum. So, pretty much what I would assume most upgrade cylinder heads are made out of. Alright, so right off the bat, you know, feels sturdy. It's got a nice little rubber O-ring across the front there. That's interesting. Got their logo on it, so you know, that's cool if you care about that kind of thing. They've got double O-rings on it. You know, that's cool. Some people don't care for double O-ring. You know, double O-ring isn't going to hurt you, but if not having a double O-ring really isn't going to make you suffer either. So, you know, whatever. Well, this is interesting. The bevel here on the front pad, on the rear pad here, is a little weird. I don't like that, and the reason why I don't like that is because it's going to be harder for your faucet washer to be glued to that surface, or your sorbo thing pad to be glued to that surface. Usually you see this pattern on bore-up cylinder heads, because it would make room for that bore-up piston head. But even in those cases, the bore-up cylinder head, we know faucet washer right here is going to be a little more beveled downward to kind of accommodate for that piston head. So, you know, I don't particularly care for that, you know, pad design there where it bevels down. I'd much rather prefer for it just to be flat, like, you know, SHS and Lonex tend to be. But, you know, that's not a big loss there, because I do tend to AOE correct between the piston and then piston head at this point nowadays. But, you know, I wish this were flat, just because it would, you know, kind of help my faucet washer to stick there. But, you know, other than that, that's probably just a really minor gripe. So, good cylinder head, looks good. As long as it fits in my gun and fits appropriately, it'll be good. All right, so next thing we're going to look at is their air seal nozzle. So this should be for their M4 series. Let's break this open here, slide it right on out. So, you know, it looks like an air seal nozzle, probably made out of the same aluminum as their other parts, so that's cool, nice and sturdy. The air nozzle design in the front is a little different, and I read up on this in the email that they sent me. It's supposed to kind of direct the airflow more consistently forward, as opposed to kind of forward and out the sides as well. You know, I don't know how much stock I put into that. You know, basically, as long as my air seal nozzle doesn't cause me to lose a significant amount of FPS, I don't particularly care about the front design. Yeah, you know, it looks nice. It looks like it's got an O-ring on the inside of it, so that's what I prefer. I know some people don't particularly care about that, but I've noticed improvements from having O-rings on the inside there, hugging on the cylinder head's nozzle. So that's great. I like that. And yeah, it's a good-looking air nozzle. Hopefully it performs the way it looks. All right, so lastly, we'll go over the barrels that I was sent. We're actually going to go over one of these barrels just in this portion of the video, just because they're essentially the same. Same things are included, just different lengths. So this is the 229 I was sent, 229 6.03 barrel. And yeah, it comes in that usual barrel packaging that they always do. It's actually a really nice finish on that barrel. It feels really nice. Some really good looking crowning too. That's awesome. And then, I know you guys won't be able to see this very well, but the inside finish looks really nice too. So that seems like a really nice looking barrel. It looks a little different up here than the standard barrel. That's just the standard AEG barrel. That's just because this will work in a gas blowback or an AEG hop-up chamber. So it's a very versatile barrel. Hopefully it fits appropriately in an AEG hop-up chamber and doesn't require a whole lot of modification. And then it looks like I was sent an AEG, or a flat hop bucking, a gas blowback bucking, and an R-hop patch. That's pretty cool. One of the biggest gripes that people have with doing R-hop is that it's just a very per barrel, per hop-up chamber experience. So you have to modify everything to fit very specifically, and people don't like to do that because it's very time consuming and requires a certain skill set too. This is supposed to be a kind of a drop-in replacement for that idea on this barrel. So hopefully we get the same, if not very similar performance to an R-hop with significantly less work. So that's the idea here. And just, you know, real quick, side-by-side comparison. This is an AEG barrel, or a ZCI barrel. You can already tell the finish on the ZCI barrel is just not as good as the finish on this barrel. And inside too, I can tell you the ZCI barrel probably does not look as nice. No, it definitely does not. But yeah, anyway, that's the barrel. Let's actually start installing these upgrade parts and see how they perform. Alright, so I finally have everything installed. I've got the piston head, cylinder head, and air seal nozzle installed into my ICS M4 upper gearbox shell. And then I've got the 6.04 229 length barrel installed in this M4 hop-up chamber with the R-hop patch that came included. And then I have the 97mm length 6.04 barrel for my KJW Glock 23. Everything was very easy to install. I don't really have any complaints. But let's go piece by piece and talk about each one. Alright, so let's first start off with this piston here. This was actually fairly easy to work with. I didn't have any problems with it at all. I did the usual testing. I closed up the gearbox shell here. and tested back and forth movement. Really nice and smooth. Goes down easily with gravity. There it goes. And no adverse resistance, and even it was the same when I screwed the gearbox shell down as well. So this piston's good to go. I AOE corrected. I just had to shave off a little bit off of that third to last tooth there. The second to last tooth, like we talked about, was already removed. I also glued down the rack in the piston body. That's something you should do with every single removable rack, even if it's just a couple teeth. The beginning of your piston teeth is that you should definitely glue those down. And then I AOE corrected between the piston head and the piston here. Now with this cylinder head, I didn't do any AOE correction there just because, like I said, the faucet washer would probably not sit the greatest there, so I didn't worry about it. Plus I like more weight on my piston when I can get it. And then all this setup works really well together, gets a really good air seal, and then same thing with this air nozzle, just super simple kind of work there. Looks like there might be a little bit of an air leak there actually. I'll have to take a look at that later. But no, this slides on here really well. Not too much resistance, just kind of what you want. And yeah, the cylinder head fits fairly well. That rubber gasket here actually does make it a firm fit, which here's the thing with cylinder heads. You don't want it too tight, because if it's too tight, your gearbox shell's not going to close, and you're going to be having to really jam it together to get it to fit right and to close all the way. But the thing with this cylinder head, and in this gearbox shell at least, is that it's a firm fit, but it's a good firm fit. Comes together, the gearbox shell comes together nice, and I don't have to push and squeeze to get it to fit. It really fits well, and that rubber gasket on the front really causes that firm fit. I think it's going to be fine. I'd rather have a slightly firm fit than a very loose fit cylinder head, but you obviously don't want too tight like we talked about. So this setup is good. We're going to test it in my ICS M4, and yeah. Now, installing the barrel with the bucking and the R-hot patch within the Lonax chamber was actually super easy. I had to use a little bit of Teflon tape between the barrel and the bucking, but other than that, everything fit together really well and got me a really good air seal. Now, I'm also using the included nub that ICS sent, or that comes with the Master Mod setup here. So I'm including that nub setup, which means that I'm not getting full flat contact like I will with like a flat hop nub. With my R-hot patch, I'm getting more of this curved kind of fitment. And I don't think it's going to be the greatest with R-hop, but that's something we can definitely test out and see about later. And then pretty much the same thing with this setup here. I'm not much of a gas blowback tech, but this seemed to fit together very well. I didn't have many issues. Besides, I could not get the bucking that they sent to actually fit appropriately. I had to end up using the one that I already had in my Glock. So that's one downside, but everything else fit together just fine. So after installing these parts by Master Mods, I did 2 tests. I took the piston head, the cylinder head, and the air nozzle and installed them into my ICS M4 and tested the FPS variance of that setup. And what I found was that the FPS variance was actually really good, surprisingly really good. 389 FPS to about 393, 394 FPS, which is about plus or minus 2.5. And so that's a really good FPS variance for that kind of setup, really. I think my previous setup with the SHS parts was about the same, maybe not quite as tight of a grouping, but it was still pretty good. But with the Master Mods parts, it's actually even better. And then the next thing I did was I took the Master Mods barrel grouping, the 229mm length 6.04 Master Mods barrel, and I put all that stuff together like I showed you, and I tested its FPS variance in my Airsoft DSG. And what I found was that the FPS variance was once again really good. 320 to 324 FPS, and that's a really tight grouping on a setup that really heavily jewel creeps as well, like my DSG does. Unfortunately, I'm not really able to test the range and accuracy of this setup just simply because I live in a city and there's not many open fields or safe areas to go where I could just pull out a realistic looking gun and start shooting in an open field to test accuracy. However, I will be using this Master Mods barrel, R-hot patch, bucking with the Lonax hop-up chamber in my DSG the next time I play indoor airsoft. So then I can actually truly test the accuracy, the range, and how it performs when you actually use it in-game. So my final thoughts about the Master Mods upgrade parts. I think the barrel is immaculate. It is very well made, it looks super nice, and the feel of it is just really good. The R-Hop patch is a really interesting concept. I think that'll work fine. It fits very flush and very well into the barrel hop-up window, so I don't think there's going to be any problems there. The flat hop that they include, the flat hop bucking they include is really nice as well. The only kind of reservation I have with that barrel grouping is the H-style nub, that little brass H-style nub. Those things just tend to not work very well with R-Hop setups. What works better with R-Hop setups is a flat nub and not this weird looking H nub. But that's something you can easily fix on your own. Just grind down your hop-up chamber arm and make your own little flat hop nub out of a pink eraser or something like that. Those tend to work really well for R-Hops. Now, about their piston head, cylinder head, and air nozzle, I think the piston is nice. I think that what they've done there is pretty nice. The rear of the piston has a lot of pickup tooth reinforcement, so I don't think there's going to be any problems with the rack flying out the back like they do on SHS pistons. The build quality of the piston body feels good as well. Piston head, again, the build quality feels really good. The cylinder head's the same, and the air nozzle is the same as well. However, the real only problem with these parts is that they're just a little bit more expensive than SHS and ZCI, but the quality control is definitely higher. So you pay for what you get in this case. I really do like the piston a lot. I really do want to test that out in my DSG, in my TSG, and do some long form testing. It's kind of hard to test out parts in the short term because most parts work in the short term. You really have to test these parts over a long period of time and really stress them out to truly tell how good they are. Alright guys, that's going to have to do it for this video. Thank you for watching, and thank you to ICS for sending me these Master Mods parts to review for you guys. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. It definitely goes a long way to help the YouTube channel grow and get more recognized. If you wish to help directly support me and this YouTube channel, please go check out the merch store, where we actually have some really cool Airsoft Tech themed stuff that I think you guys might really like. But as always, I will see you guys in the next video of whatever the heck I'm doing. But until then, stay tuned, Techs.